It's the Cinema Color Podcast. You may have joined your good friend Rob and Butch and Rob when we did our 14-book cavalcade walkthrough of Journey to Bantam, the 13+1, as it turns out, Star Trek novels that were published by Bantam Books 1969 through 1981, I think, is when the last one was published. Well, as you know, if you've been following us, and God knows you have been following us, ladies and gentlemen, we have finished our Bantam book walkthrough, and now we're moving on to the meat of the thing, which is the Star Trek books me and Rob grew up on. That's right. We are doing... I'm going to turn it over to Rob. He will give you the title of our podcast for this next series.
Thank you. Is that a Trek in your pocket? Thank you. That's, we grew up with these. That was the best I could come up with for a title, but I'm sticking with it.
Yep,
this is fun.
It's Pocket Books took over. They got the contract for doing Star Trek novels after Bantam Books had done it for a decade. So since it's Pocket Books, we're going with, is that a Trek in your pocket? We could have done Pocket Universes. We could have done Spocket to Me. We could have done
Pocket Attraction.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Pocket full of dilithium. We could have done any of that, but instead is that a Trek in your pocket? Because we have 50 Treks in our collective pockets because we... Inspired by our boxing channel on our podcast, we have put together the list of the first 50 numbered original series Star Trek episodes by Pocket Books. They range the first book, number 1, is the novelization of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and we randomly will roll a new one each time we finish one, and that's what we did with the first one, and we rolled the last one on the list last time. Number 50 is what we rolled, and that is
Butch.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, but I was just going to say, people don't know how glorious it was to be a part of the numbered gold that was, next week, number 7.
Yes.
2 months later, number 8. They don't number them now.
Too many to number, yeah. It's like I don't think there's enough room on the covers to hold all the numbers it would take.
No, they got close to 100 before they quit. I think they might have. I don't think they got quite all the way to 100. Still numbering them now. They just say the original series, and they got 47 splinter series going. They have book series based on Star Trek that's never made it to television.
Yeah,
got everything. But
you're exactly.
But
right.
This was the golden. This was the good old days, and you tried to have them all in order. You tried to complete your collection. I mean, it was great.
Yep, that's right. And Rob and I each have almost complete. I have very close to completed my collection of the first 50. I have a few past 50 also, but we're just doing the first 50 because that's what we're doing with the boxing thing too. So this week's book is from June 1990. It's Doctor's Orders by Diane Duane. 291 pages, which would have been the longest novel in the Bantam books. There were no Bantam books that were 290. I think the longest was Fate of the Phoenix at 270 or something like that.
I'm pretty sure that was 800 or 900 pages.
It felt 800 or 900 pages. That's right. But Diane Duane, turns out she was a prolific Star Trek writer. She's written other stuff too, but she has done. She did The Wounded Sky, number 13 from 1983 was her first one. Then she did My Enemy, My Ally, number 18 in 84. The Romulan Way, number 35 in 87. And then she did one of the non-numbered books from 1988, Spock's World, that actually came out before the one we're doing today. It was a hardcover release, which is why they didn't number it, right? But it was done by Pocket Books. And she also did 4 other TOS novels, some of them in the 90s on this list, and then 2 TNG novels as well. And it's interesting because this book came out in 1990, so Star Trek The Next Generation was on the air when this came out, this book. And there's at least a little bit of Next Generation in this, right? Suddenly they're using data pads. They're not signing clipboards anymore. They got data pads just like they did on Next Generation. So,
yeah, and they, was this after? Did this book come out after, like, Picard had left, Beverly in charge one episode or whatever? Was that after this?
No, that was after. I think that was like season 6. That was if I'm trying to remember which episode that was in, but she at some point was in command. It was during Descent Part 2. Descent Part 1 and Descent Part 2. That was season 6 of TNG. So
So maybe there's, maybe seeds were being, cross-pollinated or,
Absolutely. Because, if you haven't been able to figure it out, ladies and gentlemen, this book by Diane Duane, Doctor's Orders, they are going to jump through, do backflips and undulations and contortions to figure out a way to make Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy be in the center seat for half the book, in charge. And there's nothing nobody can do about it, including Dr. McCoy, much to his chagrin. So that's quite a setup. What do you think about the setup for this book?
Well, it is gymnastics on a par with trying to avoid saying what a woman is, for example, these days. But I wasn't crazy about the premise, Butch. I'm not gonna lie.
I hear you.
I'm gonna throw down the gauntlet here right at the beginning. All those books you mentioned by Diane Duane, right? The Wounded Sky, I remember fondly. What else do we have? The Web of the Romulans, or The Romulan Way?
Romulan Way, My Enemy, My
Our
Ally.
World, I remember just being awesome. I haven't, who knows if it is. But I was really looking forward to this, and then I'm like, wait, so, because it's not just that, I'm okay with the idea of leaving Bones in charge and something goes south. It's the leaving Bones in charge and, sorry, everybody's hands are tied. There's just no way for him to not be in charge.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, Spock's standing right there and can give the orders of what to do in battle, but he can't because McCoy's in charge. Is like,
and why does this bother me, Butch? Because we just watched, I'll just give an example.
Yeah.
She goes to great pains in chapter 1 or 2 to explain why, well, the captain can leave whoever in charge, and by God, it doesn't matter if it's Admiral Nagura or God himself. No one's getting him out of that seat, right? Until the captain. Oh, wait, we just watched The Taste of Armageddon. He left Scotty in charge, and that guy, that Poppin' Fresh, what's his name, was going to relieve him in like the first minute.
Yeah. Well, in that case, he's not really taking control of the ship. He's just making them beam him down or something like that. I don't know. It's all very confusing. You're right. It doesn't make any sense. And the only thing I remembered about this book was the cover. It's got that pink cover with McCoy in the seat and Spock standing next to him, hands on hips. That's what I remember about it. It's a very memorable cover. You'll see it when you see the cover art for this, which is not yet done. Stay tuned. But it's quite a setup for this. But the ostensibly the actual mission that they're on is they have been tasked to go to this planet, and I'll get to the name of it in a minute. The actual name, they call it Fly Speck. At some point, Sulu nicknames it Fly Speck. And there has been a survey mission that went there and found out that there's 3 sentient races on this planet, and the Enterprise's mission is to go there, take its team of scientists and diplomats, figure out how to talk to all these 3 sentient races by upgrading stuff with the Universal Translator, so we can see how that works. Yeah. And then once they have done that, to try and create diplomatic relations with all 3 of them. Not some of them, not 2 of them, but all 3 of them. Hopefully they'll get along. Nobody knows jack about it, but that's their mission, and it's an interesting mission, So it's like a 2-parter, and so so it has a potential for some fun stuff. What did you think of the premise?
Well, outside of the Bones being left in command, which is the main premise,
the mission. We'll say, what did you think of the mission there?
Mission's interesting. The thing about books, like we've talked about before, is you can do stuff that you couldn't do on the show.
Yeah. Yes.
Or even in a movie.
Yes.
Right. You can have crazy aliens. You can have vampires. You can have
lobster diplomats, like the last book we did.
Yeah.
In this case, ugly bags of mostly water, to quote a TNG episode, but they're actually aliens.
You can have giant cats. You can have crocodiles dressed up like Philip Marlowe. You can do all that stuff, and that's cool. And the author, I think, does a nice job. Although she does fall into the trap. Spoilers. Remember how I've complained previously about how authors, they just have to give something a name you can't pronounce.
Are you talking about the 3 alien species, or the Ornet, which are these little bags of like nothing that they can make they're essentially a little bag of brown goo. Then they have the tree people, which are the I'm drawing a blank. The Lacket or whatever, and then they have the I don't know how. And I'm gonna just say what it is because who knows how to pronounce it? It's semicolon A capital A lowercase t.
Right. So here's my problem. If you can't pronounce it and I can't pronounce it, we can't think it. And so if you put it in the book 800 times and you have people saying it on the bridge and in transmissions, it's annoying because it's an unpronounceable word. So we had click in the last book.
Yeah.
Diane Duane just got all moist reading that, and upgraded them to semicolon. So that's another quibble. But I do like in answer to your question, the mission's interesting. There's going to be spoilers, some time stuff, which I like.
Yeah.
There's going to be some fun Klingon interaction, which is great. On the negative column, where's Spock? Where's Kirk? So those are kind of I guess what I'm saying is we'll see how it goes, but off the top of my head, it's a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, the villains, as you mentioned in this, are the Klingons, or at least they are just a while in, right? So there's something that goes wrong in the mission, and then the Klingons show up, and so obviously that's wrong. But we get to meet a Klingon captain, and we get to meet a Klingon task force commander. That's interesting. And then we meet, or actually we don't, but we see and engage in combat a group that we've only seen a couple times in Star Trek up to the point when this book was made, and that is the Orion Pirates, right?
Yes.
The Orion Pirates, which we saw very kind of like sort of in the episode Journey to Babel, in the original series, season 2. In that original episode, of course, it's just a flash of light that zooms by. In the special editions, when they did the special effects, they created a different ship for it and stuff like that. But the idea is that was a very fast ship with very powerful weapons and no defensive capabilities. In this case, it's something completely different. When they show up, it's a big, scary thing, but they don't do enough with it, I think. We don't ever get to see the Orions. They just conclude it is them, and then at some point they go away. We never meet them. We never talk to them. They never hail them. They never get an answered hail, nothing. But it's kind of like, the big, scary thing. Similar to like 2009 Star Trek. You just have to have a big, scary ship with lots of guns, right? So.
Hey, oh God, what was I going to say? Well, I'll continue to come back.
Well, so we do have a couple, we used to do this on the, go ahead.
So, this is not related to this book, but it's related to one of the books we just did, or not just this year. One of those bands. Remember how they played fast and loose with the canon, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And we had that one book. I don't remember which one it was, but they came across like a derelict ship that had a Klingon ship kind of stuck to it, or
yes, yeah,
right. And they had kind of a fun thing where they talked about Klingon high priests and stuff like that.
Right.
And in Strange New Worlds, it felt kind of like that. It's like, spoilers to anybody who's watched. You've seen that last one, right, Butch?
Yep, of course.
Yeah. So, it's like Pike's older self from an alternate whatever visits him. And he's like, yeah, the Klingon monks showed me my future. Yes. I was like, hey, I remember that stuff.
We know Klingon monks.
Those books had, they had creative ideas, and some of them find their way in somehow, and some of them don't. But this try some stuff, and we'll see if it sticks to the wall.
Yeah, just try some stuff and see what sticks. I always like that. So let's see. So a couple of things. When we first started doing this, our Bantam podcast, we would occasionally go, so the main guest star of this book, who should play the main guest star of this book? And stuff like that. And there's a couple Klingons in this one. We can talk about whether we think we can know who should play that. But here's the thing. One of the main characters of it is that unpronounceable alien who originally kind of appears a couple times as a big block of granite that moves or isn't there and is there. Obviously, we know who should play this guy, right? It's Rock Hudson. Okay, so we can move on from that. So I got
about did uh did we have any other? Did we have any? I'm trying to remember if there's any Enterprise crew members that was Tomlinson in this one or
no? The crew members I wrote down is a different nurse, Leah Burke, because they say that Chapel's off doing her doctoral boards. Lieutenant Carastus from linguistics. Dan Hetzko, he's a male nurse that McCoy interacts with. Lieutenant De Leon on the bridge. There's one alien who's a Delassi on the bridge, and then Pat Iao. There's a couple others. They throw in a lot of like crew members, especially down in sickbay that McCoy interacts with.
So I would say the main one was that other nurse, McCoy's nurse.
Yeah, Leah Burke. Yeah,
Leah Burke, and was she brunette?
I didn't get a description of her in this. Maybe she was. I don't know. So, but we can imagine. You go wild with whoever you want to cast in.
Yeah, well, let me let it percolate for a minute. And do you got anybody in mind?
I don't really. I was thinking, like I said, I shot my wad with the joke about Rock Hudson. So one thing I will say that I think they do well with this book is they make sure all the main characters have something to do. I think Scotty has the least to do in this, but whine about the engines and report back about what he's doing. But Chekhov is in charge of like science briefings on the aliens and stuff like that early on. Sulu is kind of like really involved in the tactical aspects about, analyzing the enemy warships and what they can do and stuff.
Yeah, I had a different take on it, but I thought that nobody in the crew had enough to do.
Well, I'm just comparing them to the books we've been doing where Sulu and Uhura and Chekhov sometimes Chekhov's not even there, right? So
yeah, I agree. It's nice to have them mentioned, but I felt like, and I'll be honest, I was expecting a lot of Spock, and it didn't seem like there was. I mean, this is a lady who literally wrote the book on Spock in some.
Yeah, that's true, and there was a lot of opportunity for. Yeah.
I felt like I would have liked more of the crew doing stuff, not just being mentioned, but actually playing a role. And we'll get to it, but I also thought I wasn't entirely sure that McCoy seemed in character to me.
They were probably trying to expand his character a little bit in terms of stuff he's never done before. The whole so we'll get some of that. And then in terms of the three aliens, we get to spend a lot of time with two of the alien races for the first half of the book, and then they essentially step out of the way and move over to the third one. But the one that really gets, if you'll pardon my expression, the short end of the stick are the tree people. The tree people, they don't really do much of anything but wander around and occasionally get in people's way and occasionally get phaser fired in flashbacks and stuff like that.
I think they and stuff, right?
Yeah.
They're ice stock, or am I getting the races mixed up again?
Well, the bags are the little bag people are the ones that they spend a lot of time fine tuning the linguistics with. And then the tree people are the ones that have berries for eyes. That's just creepy as hell. I'm not gonna lie. So they did some fun stuff in here. I thought we get a reference again to relativistic velocities. We had that. And you remember when we had that in Galactic Whirlpool in Journey to Bantam, where they're like, usually ships either fly slow or they fly at warp speeds, but they don't usually fly at close to warp speeds.
That was the David Gerrold book, if I remember it.
It was.
I thought. You know what else I remembered? Like I said, I didn't take notes, so some of the stuff's coming to me as we're talking. But they gave a good explanation for why I don't like what I talked about last time, which is these ships coming out of warp and just like there's 30 of them stopping on it. And they mentioned that you don't just come out of warp and do that because the people inside the ship get turned to mush.
Yeah.
When you try stop on a dime coming out of warp, and that seems like it makes sense to me. I know it can be explained away because it's all,
Heisenberg compensators. Yes, exactly. Well, so I don't know. One of my favorite details about this book is that the Klingons at some point show up, and you're always okay. So in the original series, the Klingons are always show up, and they're like they want the planet because there's something on the planet that they want, and I thought it was fun what they were on the planet to get. They're on the planet. is especially is fun because what they compare it to, they're on a planet to get a root or something because they use a root to make like a sauce, and like Kirk's like, you mean like Worcestershire sauce? I was like, what a 1990 thing to say that it's Worcestershire sauce. I mean, I'm thinking like, if you want to stick with Star Trek, DS9 had Yamak sauce was something that all the Cardassians ate, but I'm thinking sriracha, gochujang, really. Worcestershire sauce? That is so like 1970s. That is right there.
Well, I know it was her trying to put in another unpronounceable word because half the readers can't.
Worcestershire. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but I thought that was fun because they make it sound like it's some kind of medicine. They're all succumb to the effects of something.
But it's like we just like the taste of it.
People are being murdered because they're running out of whatever this ingredient is, and then you're like, oh, it's wasabi. Oh, good to know.
Yeah, well, I will say this, man. There is currently a sriracha shortage in America. And I went to the store and I looked and it wasn't there. And I went to the store and I looked and it wasn't there. And a couple weeks ago, I went to the store and they had 3 bottles of. I bought a bottle. I was going to buy 2, and I was like, it takes me a year to eat through sriracha, but it's like, don't know what you got till it's gone. Yeah, so that's exactly. So
I don't think I've ever purchased sriracha sauce.
Yeah, well, the last thing I will say then is that McCoy, when he's in charge, does some smack talking to the Klingon commander, and I thought his smack talking was inspired because he's a medical doctor, so when he's smack talking about the surgery that guy needs to get. What do you mean you can't afford the liver surgery you need? It's blah, blah, blah. I thought that's good smack talk.
That was fun.
Yeah, I don't know. Fun. It's definitely doctor-related smack talk. All right, so without further ado, shall we walk through this plot? I like these there was 11 chapters in this book, so it's pretty packed. So it's going to be a high-level overview, right? So
tear at 30,000 feet.
Yeah. So strangely enough, this book opens in the Swiss Alps. Did not see that coming, where McCoy is dining with an old med school classmate of some sort. They're joking about him stealing a cadaver from the guy or blaming the stealing of a cadaver on the guy or whatever. This is kind of a way to, I guess when you open with Dr. McCoy, that's your hint that this book's going to be about him. I'm thinking, well, his picture's on the cover. Isn't that enough? But it's cool. So that leads really to nothing other than give us background a little bit on Dr. McCoy, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure that thematically there's something there, but I don't want to write a paper about it. Yeah, I thought it was a fun way to start. I like it when you just kind of start off ship in some strange situation. You have to figure it out in the old TV show. So
yeah, I guess the one thing that they talk about is that, McCoy kind of remembers that the Swiss Articles of Confederation or something like that was like kind of the precursor of the Federation of Planets. So maybe there's that. I'm like, well, so maybe there's that, I guess, or whatever, because they are talking about. So he gets called away from his lunch with his old classmate because they've got this mission to go establish relations with this other planet. So.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun setup. We get a little bit of McCoy backstory. He struggled in one of his classes. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, and then he's still in chapter 1. We're all aboard now. We get the briefing from Chekhov about this planet they're going to. The planet is 1212 Musquet 4. It's a M-class planet. It has 3 species: the Lahit, the Orne, and the whatever the hell it is. We're just going to call them the Rock People. So,
the other thing, you could have said it's this with the semicolon.
Yeah.
Someone on the crew would be like, "Can we just call them, the Franklins or whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
Some stands for the rest of the book, please, Diane." For next time.
Just once in your life. Yeah, so it's a science and diplomacy mission where they're going to have to establish relations and work on their translation abilities. So that'll be fun wordplay, I guess. And that's chapter 1. So,
and that's fun, too. It's like, we've always just known that the universal translator works. Well, how does it work? And so I like the idea of someone goes and collects a bunch of data, and then that's how it kind of works.
Yeah, I think the only episode at all in the original series that even really shows you one or even thinks about how one works is Metamorphosis, right? Where they have it looks like a lightsaber, and they're trying to talk to the companion, And I think that's the only episode where they really talk about a universal translator. A lot of times it's just, hey, these guys speak our language when we show up at their planet, but it's assumed that something's going on that it's actually translating. So, right.
Yeah.
So chapter 2 then, Bones is, and his medical staff are all overworked trying to get ready for this meeting these 3 new alien races. And he and Kirk are beefing a little bit about, oh, you're so lazy and you have so much spare time. Oh, you just sit around your chair in the bridge and all you do is sit around. You have plenty of time. So it's like there was my kids had this book and I had this book when I was a kid called Goofy Minds the Store, where Goofy tells his wife, I work out in the fields all day. You have no idea how hard it is. And the wife's like, I work in the house all day and you have no idea how hard it is. And then the fun thing about that book is that Goofy has to mind the house and he finds out just how hard it is. Ta-da! That's this book. So
what? Saw that in Strange New Worlds. Spock found out how hard it is being whatever the hell T'Pring is.
I just stand there looking at myself naked in the mirror all day, but that's me. I'm that's how I am, so it's fine. All right.
Bring it up. No.
So they make planet fall on fly speck. That's Sulu's nickname for it. It turns out the word musque is like Latin for fly. So he comes up with some clever Latin, and that's good for Sulu. I think that's cool. And then they beam down to the planet. It's first contact with the little bags of brown goo people. They're the Ornate. Ornate is the plural, Ornette is the singular or whatever. They're very, they can basically make pseudopods. They can turn groups of themselves into tall buildings for who knows what purpose, since they make the buildings out of themselves. I don't know what the point of that is, but we don't really get.
They could make a space station under duress in...
Encountered a Farpoint.
Farpoint, yeah.
That's exactly right. It's like, and so that idea had been a couple years before when this book came out. So, so we do get some stuff about them, fun stuff about them trying to communicate. Learning their first phrases. That's kind of fun. I guess a little bit there, where trying to fine tune the universal translator. And then we get more of the Bones and Kirk joshing each other about how hard it is to be captain or whatever. Ha ha ha. So then Bones goes down to the planet, and a good time he's having such a good time down there that he's late for his briefing room thing. Just making Kirk mad at more pissed off at him. You're not getting enough rest, and also you're spending too much time having a good time. Yeah, I just it's fun that they're beefing at each other. I mean, you and I have been through that, right? So,
we don't beef, do we?
No, but we pick on each other about about our little habits and stuff like that. Yeah. That's kind of what it is. So. So it's a pretty good setup so far. Then chapter 3 opens with their first meeting with the tree-like people, the Lahit. They kind of have a group mind a little bit, berries for eyes, which is really weird. They might all be part of a giant single life form, that's like the entire forest floor is like all these people. They're all interconnected. It's all connected. We don't know for sure, but that's kind of an interesting thing. And then McCoy's having a conversation with Hitch. Hitch is what he's named, the one Orne guy, because sometimes when the translator doesn't work right, he goes. So he's like, yeah, it's like Hitch as well. I'll just call you Hitch because it sounds like whatever. See, they could have done that with the semicolon AT people, right?
There was a little too. They went a little heavy on the sons here for McCoy. Let me tell you something, son.
Yeah.
I thought it was Stone Cold Steve Austin sometimes on the bridge.
That's the bottom line.
Now give me a hell yeah. But yeah. So if they're gonna recast that part, I'm going with Stone Cold. But yeah, a little heavy on the sons. Just, Diane for next time. But
we're just helping you out, Diane. I don't know if you're still with us, but if you're going to write another book, we're just trying to help you fine-tune your craft. Yeah, so then while they're meeting with the Orne and while they're meeting with the Lahit, then all of a sudden they have a pretty awe-inspiring encounter with the third race, which is those the rock people, right? And it's like, they tried to show pictures of them, but they have pictures of them, but they couldn't really get pictures because they're there and they're not there. And stuff like that, and they seem to have a pretty good reach and a pretty good awareness of other things, bigger than just the little area they're living in, stuff like that. So,
that horn with Jay, we did a podcast on a couple years ago where it was like they're taking photographs and weird stuff shown. It kind of felt like that a little bit. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Why is it, there's a little bit of mystery. Why can't we get a clear photo of this thing? It's always blurry, a little out of focus.
Because it's Bigfoot, that's why. Yeah, so then Kirk finally gets fed up with McCoy. They're on the bridge. They're sitting there jawing at each other, and Kirk's like, fine, you know what? It's an order. You're in command. I'm handing you command. You're in command. Sit in the damn chair. Sit there. That's the only way I can guarantee you're going to get any rest. You're not going to promise to do it. You have to sit there in that chair. That's all you can do. I'm going to go down to the planet. You're going to sit in the chair. Nothing's going on anyway.
Does that feel in character for you? I feel like Kirk's had enough seemingly nice planets that went south that would be kind of a risk, especially with what we find out are very stringent regulations.
You just say, yeah, you're in charge, but, semicolon AT. If something were to go slightly awry, Spock's in command.
Exactly.
Right? Maybe there's that, right? Or maybe, or whatever. So of course, because what happens is Kirk goes down and he meets with the rock people. There's a little bit of diplomacy happening. It's pretty obvious this rock person is really aware of what's going on. He can work the translator really well. The communication's going really well. And then something goes weird, and he's like, okay, shall we begin talking now, says the rock. And Kirk's like, yeah, okay, well, we just did. And next thing you know, Kirk's nowhere to be found. That's a dramatic turn for the end of a chapter right there.
Good one.
Yeah. So it's really weird. All right. So now Spock explains why regulations won't let McCoy hand off command to Spock. And I wrote ... I guess ...
I wrote ... I'm not having it ...
Yeah. I mean, so that's okay because Uhura is on the bridge with Bones, and they spend a good amount of time, Uhura and Bones do, talking about how the translator's going, how fly spec works, how the problems that they're having with the recording systems and stuff like that. They're not getting signals and things like that. Some things are there but not there, and maybe all these aliens are one alien, or maybe there are lots of aliens and stuff. So Uhura's kind of involved in those conversations. She's kind of like his like safety blanket while he's on the bridge, I guess, sort of.
Yeah, she's a lot of times not really doing communication stuff, though.
That's true. Yeah, you would think, okay, well, if you're working on communications, isn't she in charge of that? And I suppose, but no, they have somebody else doing the translating stuff.
And not to belabor the point about the premise of this book, but I mean, they could have said, you're in charge because that would have had the same effect on me. Like, okay. But, Spock goes to great pains, like you said, to say, Kirk can make like an ensign in charge or whatever, and it doesn't matter if well, then why do we have a chain of command? I just thought it was really far-fetched. And it did bug.
You know who was paying attention to this, though? J.J. Abrams is paying attention to this because at some point Ensign Kirk's going to become in command of the Enterprise, because at some point Pike says, "You're in command, Ensign Kirk," or maybe he's Lieutenant Kirk at that point. So I think that's it's probably where he got that idea from, and I didn't think it was believable then, and it's a little bit more believable now because at least McCoy's a commander, right? He's a not in the chain of command commander, but he's almost equal to rank to Spock. In theory, it's just he's not in the chain of command, right? Because he's never done the whole officer training school, although they make it sound like he did, but he's still not in the chain of command. Well, guess what, though? He's going to get to be, because even though he gets to go to his quarters for a while, he gets to order room service in his quarters, and then they have a briefing where he gets updates from all the section leaders, and, and things are going well, but then at the end of Chapter 4, some Klingons show up in a battle cruiser.
Before the Klingons show up, Butch, let me just say,
yes,
I did appreciate Miss Duane bringing sandwiches back to the Enterprise.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
I came to find out that apparently that's all you can eat on the Enterprise, but I did like the fact that they were having sandwiches. I thought that was fun. It was like, oh yeah, this is human beings that, there's something familiar about all this craziness that's going on, talking trees and stuff notwithstanding. At least I know what a sandwich is. And so I did like that. I thought that was fun. It's right up there with the, signing fuel consumption reports and drinking coffee. So I was I was like, yes, I'm in.
That being said, I mean, yeah, that's supposed to be my chicken sandwich and my coffee. But that being said, I mean, even in 2022, right? Does anybody eat sandwiches? Somebody I know on Facebook posted a picture of them making a bologna sandwich. I was like, when I make sandwiches now, it's like a production. It's like I got a panini press, and I'm putting I'm pickling daikons and carrots before I'm making the sandwich. It's like, yeah, nobody, it's nice to know that even in 23rd century, they're doing simple chicken salad sandwiches, right? That's good.
What else to know is that for some reason in the 23rd century, they've lost the ability to have someone bring you a sandwich. You have to leave the bridge to go get a sandwich. It doesn't matter if the ship's in danger. All right, I'll be back in 10 minutes. I'm going to get a...
Well, what happened is at some point, one of our guest stars spilled dropped his sandwich on the deck, and that stain was there for a week. And so they're like, look, we got to make a rule. No more sandwiches on the bridge. Ensign, what's his name, ruined it for everybody. That's how it happens. I mean, it's like...
I'll buy that.
So, yeah, the Klingons arrive, and it's the Akara... which is the Klingon battle cruiser commanded by Captain, or maybe it's Commander Kayev. And he and Bones get to kind of go back and forth a little bit right now.
I thought he was great. I really liked him. I thought she did a good job.
Yeah.
Making him have some character, and he was in character with what we've seen with the Klingons before. I thought he was a fun guest star.
Absolutely, that was good. And so Bones does warn him about, well, if you go down to the planet, feel free. It's a free planet. You can go down there, but you should be careful because some of the aliens might be a little weird, and stuff like that. And then it's somewhere around here where Kayev asks him, so it's the Enterprise. I thought Captain Kirk was Captain Enterprise. He's like, yeah, well, he was, but I killed him in a duel. Which seems a little out of character, but I can totally see him doing that. It's like, I killed him in a duel, so that's why you should be afraid of me instead. And then, of course, McCoy gets his first of a couple sets of orders from an admiral. There are ways out there, so of course you don't get to talk to the admiral. You get like an information blast from him. Is she another one of those authors that called it a squirt?
Yeah, which I'm okay with because I knew what she meant.
Yeah, well, I know what a squirt means, and.
Yeah, but I have, I think, this is novel number 50. I think we've had that terminology used in a few.
Yeah. Well, it's been used in the Bantam books too. We saw squirt in a couple of Bantam books too. So,
so I was okay with that. I like the fact that they were consistent. Right, this admiral's a prick. That always happens.
That's their job. An admiral's job is to be a prick.
Right. What's your hashtag? Right. Like. Bureaucrats are the worst or something, right? So
that's exactly right. Also, kids are the worst, but yes, it's bureaucrats. Am I right? Yeah, okay, that's right.
Yeah. So I thought, yeah, she's hitting the mark there.
Yeah. So the Klingons, of course, are down there with digging crews, and they immediately call back and say, "Yeah, we've heard a report that some of our crews have disappeared. We think you guys disintegrated them somehow." And Bones is like, "What? What did we do? How did we do that? Trust me, it's like and he doesn't quite say that. He says, "Well, some of our crew are missing too." And they're like, "Oh yeah, how many?" He's like, "Well, that's classified." So he's playing it cool. I will say that Bones has in the TV series and in the movies shown that he's a cool customer when when he's got Khan has that knife to his throat. He's cool. He's That's like, right. You can try by cutting the carotid artery. You have a knife to your doctor's throat. Yeah, it's like, so that's, he's cool under pressure, right? Or at least he can pretend to be. So good for him. Yeah, well, meanwhile, Kirk doesn't know that he's disappeared. Kirk thinks he's just down there for a 3-hour tour. Yeah, he's down there. He thinks everything's fine. He's down there because he's met with the rock guy, and they have long philosophical, I'm not going to lie, this is where the book kind of sort of drags sometimes. It's like, why do you cry? It's like all stuff. And they learn about the Enterprise and the Klingons and stuff like that. And yeah, it seems pretty he seems pretty clear that Kirk does, that these guys, the aliens with the hashtag with a semicolon in their name, are the powerful ones, the ones that are the end to figuring out how this planet works.
Right, they sort of have like a caretaker role for the other species, and
Absolutely, and it gets really weird when he shows Kirk that he can rewind and show something that happened on the planet a while ago, and it's not just rewinding and seeing it visually, but Kirk feels like they're there. What he's showing him is when some Orion pirates attacked and killed a bunch of the tree people, right? And so, and Kirk is like, he felt the emotions, he felt the heat of the stuff. It felt very real to him, and he's starting to wonder, well, how, they must be a lot more powerful than you think. Yeah.
Would that be PTSD?
PTSD. Well done. That is great. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, so it's powerful enough that Kirk's like, what do we call you, boss? Oxmix? How about master? We'll call you master. So, which seems like a little too on point, I think, for that or whatever. But then we have another conversation between Bones and Captain Kayev. Spock is quick to remind Bones that a single Klingon ship is no match for the Enterprise. They've gone back and forth in the series about whether that's true, but generally I think the idea is that the Klingon ships have a lot of offensive weaponry but cannot hang in a fight because they can't take the kind of damage the Enterprise can take, right?
You know, they're Tyson.
That's exactly right, yeah.
They rush you, and, you know, if your knees are knocking and you're backing up, they're going to take you out. But if you have skill and tenacity and are willing to weather that storm, you can get the...
That is good stuff. That's an excellent analysis that compares to our boxing channel. Check out Saturday Night the Fights, if you will. And then we also get to finally meet another Klingon, one of the a Klingon female, no less. She's kind of in charge of the detail on the planet. That's Kator down there. And they let's just say things don't go well for them. They kind of have a vehicle that they crash. They're dealing with incompetent officers. They run into a rock. Was that rock there before? Why do we run into that rock and stuff like that? It's a little bit. I'm imagining either Keystone Cops music or Benny Hill music while the Klingons are running around down there.
I was picturing Nemesis when they went on the planet with that.
Oh, Jeep. Yeah. Yes, of course.
So yeah, it was kind of fun. I like all that stuff. So and so is gonna be, sorry when this is all over. I can't believe I'm having to do this. Kind of bad attitude Klingon stuff. That was fun being in their heads a little and getting their perspective on things. Yes,
and it was fun. And so, but we're going to spend some time planetside here in Chapter 7. We're going to now because Kirk's going to hang out with the Master. That's a great thing. We can call him the Master now. We can stop trying to figure out how to pronounce that word and just say he's the Master. And the Master, to tell you just how good of a grip the Master has on the language, he's like, so we're going to play Galactic 20 Questions? You got to sense of the idioms when you're saying Galactic 20 Questions, so...
Yeah, I to this point in the book, what are we, about halfway?
Yeah.
I've enjoyed some of it, but it's a little slow, like you said. It's dragging a little. It had not grabbed me by the midway point. I did think it got better in the second half of the book. What say you about the first half? It's
interesting because we've had a lot of books that do the opposite. That the first half is good and then it falls apart. So I think if you're going to go one way or the other, it's better to have a good second half than a good first half. I think so. But that being said, I've been okay with it so far. Like I said, there's some parts of it that drag. The philosophical conversations with the Rock are one of them, and we're starting off with this again. It's like the humanoids. It's in your nature to destroy yourselves. God, that's how he sounds, like a Terminator. They make a big deal about how the voice of the Master sounds like thunder or earthquakes or something like that. It's all very striking.
Well, we're all picturing the end from the Two Towers, right?
Yes, that's exactly.
Is that what you were picturing?
Yeah, it's like a little shadow comes over, and then one ring to rule them all. Blah blah blah. Yeah, so. Yeah, so then the Master, by the way, there's some Klingons here now, and he's like, Kirk's like, what? Probably that's a big deal. Don't just throw that detail out there. And of course, Bones is recording a captain's log up on the ship while this conversation's happening, saying that he's trying to call from Starfleet. They start to get the message, and it's jammed by the Klingons. And they're like, well, that's great, because now I don't have to listen to the Admiral. And Spock's like, yeah, he could have maybe relieved you of your command, so you should be so happy.
Well, Dr. McCoy, as of this point in time, you are Return to
Who knows?
your room. I mean, but the Spock thought it sure sounds like they're probably about to relieve him.
Yep.
What a yeah. Hey, we cut all the red tape. We're gonna put the guy who should be in charge. But
instead, no, it's not happening. He's got to stay up there for a while. And meanwhile, back on the planet, there's Kator and her group. They're looking for Tebek. Tebek. We don't know what Tebek is. It's a plant of some. It's a plant. It is a vegetable. It's about yay long. About okay. So they're looking for Tebek, and then lo and behold, they find some tree people, and they're about to phase of the tree people or disrupt the tree people. I guess Klingons use disruptors. And then the disruptor is knocked out of her hand by a rock. Was that rock there a minute ago? And it was, and now her disruptor is underneath the rock, sort of, and that's really weird. And oh, by the way, who's that guy in the Federation uniform right there? It's Captain Kirk, who's got the drop on him. What's that?
You know what Captain Kirk is doing right here? He's saying, "Where the fuck were my rock men when I was filming Star Trek V? I asked for them. I wanted them."
That's exactly right. I didn't even remember that. Yeah. I was promised Rockman, and instead I got freaking discount Stonehenge. Yes. All right. So now it's Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is the Klingons are given an ultimatum. They're like, look, you're going to have to do what we want or else we're going to get you. And he's like, look, you're in no danger. We're in no danger from your little ship, buddy. All of our analysis says you can't hang with us in a firefight. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, just you wait. And so it turns out that he's got some time to kill, so he has a little talk about watching the sunrise at Montauk Point with Ensign Devlin on the bridge. By the way, Ensign Devlin mentions, he saw 100-foot-long great white shark in the Atlantic Ocean. I was like, wait, do they grow bigger in the future? Because, like, the biggest, the one in Jaws is like 30 feet maybe. And that's, like, bigger than any actual...
Yeah. That was
100 feet long. Blue whales are 100 feet long, for crying out loud.
Because it didn't add anything to the story except make you go, oh, that doesn't sound right. Because it's not some weird planet that he's from. It's Earth that they're talking about.
Yeah, but I suppose in the future, if you protect the environment's way better, who knows? Maybe they get 100 feet long. I don't think so.
All the fallout from World War III when that happened.
Maybe that's it. Maybe they're going to go Godzilla. Maybe it's what it is. There goes Tokyo.
Have any humpback people at that time clogging up the seas, so maybe.
Yeah, well, that's true. All right, so now they're on the bridge. They're having a countdown. They reach the ultimatum point, and McCoy's like, "Oh, let's call him over." Hey, so we can't help but notice your ultimatum's reached. By the way, you're looking a little stressed, And he's like, "Well, I got to have this liver surgery." And McCoy's like, well, why don't you have liver surgery? Like, I can't afford it. He's like, wait a minute, you can't afford the liver surgery? Well, let's talk about that later. I'm like, this is great. They're setting up McCoy's going to, fix the guy's liver for him. That's how you fix your interspecies relations is I'll do some free surgery pro bono for you, buddy. But it turns out that it's all over in just a second because 3 more Klingon warships show up. And I wrote, you tell me if this is right, sauce for the goose, Mr. Savick. And by sauce, I mean that sauce you make with Tebek.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. And it turns out that the commander of that task force is Ackleen, pronouns she, her, hers. You can say Ackleen, and you don't know if it's a guy or a man or a woman. It's a female in this case.
For clarifying, it's a person who can become pregnant. Is that what we're calling them now?
We don't know. Actually, we don't know about Klingon women. We just know that she has the cleavage, right? The cleavage uniform, like Lursa and Betor have. She is pretty quick to say, well, yeah, so by the way, we're laying out an ultimatum. You're going to surrender because 1-on-1 might not have been in our favor, but 4-on-1 is in our favor. And they have just enough time to talk about that when another ship shows up. And McCoy's like, maybe that's my reinforcements, huh? Well, it's not. It's 2 signatures, but it's actually 1 signature because it's a big, huge, hulking warship that shows up, and they immediately figure out it's an Orion.
Seemed it does sound like a Pinewood Derby version of the Borg ship a little bit. But I'm like, well, are they pirates or are they some? I get that the Orion pirates are notorious, and we really don't know anything about them. And they have done some fun ship stuff, like you said, in Journey to Babel. Like, we'll try this, we'll try that.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little far-fetched. They have something that's basically a city, way larger than the Enterprise, way more powerful. I'm like, really?
Well,
is that real?
Well, this is what I wrote down: twice the speed, 3 times the firepower. Yeah, if I may quote Khan from Star Trek Into Darkness. Yeah, but the whole idea is it's just basically a big old chunk of ship that has been modified and remodified and remodified. It's basically Fast and the Furious warship version, right? It's like.
So let's get back now to the elephant on the bridge, which is, you're telling me that with the captain missing, surrounded by not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Klingon ships and this behemoth from the Orions, we're such sticklers for protocol that Spock's not taking command because McCoy is going to play a punch. He's getting his sea legs under. Come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty obvious that McCoy's command can be Spock, take control of the combat situation.
Spock, tell me what to do, and I'll say it.
Yeah, but it turns out they've got a good team, and so we'll see how they get through it. So, so the thing that's clear here is that the new ship that's arrived is more than the Enterprise can handle. So now, and by the way, it won't answer their hails. We don't know why they're there. We just know that if it's the Orions, we know the Orions have come there and like blasted tree people before.
Right. I just want to see, this was my, and you're right about your J.J. Abrams comparison, because this was a major beef I had with Star Trek, the reboot movie, was, this ship from the future shows up, and it's just a dumb mining ship, but it's a bazillion times bigger than anything the Federation can throw at it. Yeah. It's, and you're telling me the flagship of the Federation is woefully outmatched by some pirate ship. I was like, man, she's really trying to test my disbelief. How much can I suspend? It's getting my legs are buckling a little bit. I'm getting jelly into my legs.
Jelly in your belly. He's got jelly in his belly. All right, so let's move on. It's chapter 9 now, and Kirk is back on the planet with the Klingons and the Master, and he's like, "Well, aren't we all snug?" It's his actual line. He says, he tells the Master that they're not going to kill the Klingons, and in fact, he's like, "Why are you here?" And the Klingons are like, "Yeah, we just need some stuff to sprinkle on our food." And Kirk's like, "What, bacon bits?" And he's like, and they're like, "No." "What, tortilla strips?" And they're like, "No." We're sure. So it's like, okay, so he gives them some of the root, and they're like, "Oh, that's great." They start picking the leaves, and it's like, wow, if only we'd have known that's how we could have solved Friday's challenge. Just give them some of this damn sauce root or whatever. Maybe they don't have it on the planet. Capella probably didn't have the planet. Capella probably didn't have the Yamak root on there or whatever. So I guess that's why it didn't work. But so then Kirk says farewell to the Master for a while. And then now we're back in orbit, and Bones and company are working on this parabola maneuver that they're going to use to get away and hide from the Orions. And that they're like, by the way, we got to figure out a way to tell the Orions or the Klingons that they should do it too, right? So the Orions start taking shots at them, and Bones sets up a buoy to be a decoy target at some point. This was where the plan gets crazy. And so they're like, look, we're using these relativistic speeds, so we got plenty of time. It's just a matter of like sitting here while we go through this curve. You got time to go down and get a sandwich, Doctor. And so he's like, all right, I'm going to get a sandwich. I'm going to get a sandwich. And of course he's going to go downstairs. He's like, what am I having? Am I having the Jimmy John's, the master meat from Jimmy John's, or am I doing the Firehouse Subs one? He's like, no, chicken sandwich and coffee. Because again, why? I don't know. It's like banh mi sandwich. I don't know. Whatever.
Porta Subs down there in Oregon, Butch?
Do we have what?
Porta Subs?
No, don't think so.
They're like a better version of, for a while, Quiznos was the big thing. Remember that several years ago? Quiznos
was
had a
pepper bar, yeah.
Yeah, and then and Subway's kind of the I don't know, Detroit of major sandwich. Like, I guess if there isn't anything else to go to Subway, but up here we have Porta Subs, and they have I'm not sure if it has tobacco in it, but they have this mayonnaise mustard, which you may call mustard mayonnaise, or you may call it mayo stirred. I'm a mustard mayonnaise guy, but why? I feel like that should have made it to the 23rd century. I feel like Bones in a crisis would want a number one from Porta Subs.
That seems fair. Well, we don't know what he gets. He just goes and gets a sandwich. That's all we know. Yeah, and so, all right, so that's where he's at. And now we have by far the longest and most detailed chapter in the book, chapter 10. Almost three-quarters of a page.
I do want to say, but real quick, yeah, I thought I did enjoy the prolonged, I don't know if it's necessary, but the battle chapter.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of fun. I wouldn't say I entirely could visualize what was going on, but it was kind of fun, and it showed that McCoy was trying some creative stuff, and Spock was in agreement. So I thought it was kind of a fun, shaking things up a little in the book.
I generally like to agree with you, but I will say it did not start off strong when McCoy, knowing he has 10 minutes to kill, goes down to sick bay, and it's busy because they're doing routine physicals. I was like, you're at red alert. Why are you there for your physical? It's like, well, I'm time for my physical, nurse. I know there could be battle casualties soon, but I'm taking up this bed while I'm doing my treadmill thing here in the wall.
I'm playing racquetball. Do I have time for a scolding from McCoy before he runs back to the bridge?
Yeah, well, speaking of that, we're going to get that. So back on the bridge, the Orions are not where they're supposed to be. They start to wonder, do they have a cloak or some countermeasure? Why can't we see them? We don't know. Scotty says there's a fault in one of the pieces of the engine, so it's going to be a while until they can go to warp for some reason because, it happens all the time. And this is where Bones has an interesting thing where he notices that Scotty sometimes switches between the Glasgow accent, but whenever he's having ship problems, he goes to the Aberdeen accent, which is the shipyards part of Scotland. And so, so he's flipping between Glasgow and Aberdeen accents or whatever. That is a small piece of detail that adds a lot to a book, but is really not necessary at all. But it's just kind of one of those things where you're like, yeah, everybody knows that Scotty's accent is all over the place sometimes. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's not. This explains, why does the viewer see Scotty have a big accent sometimes and not other times? The answer is because sometimes it calls for it, sometimes it don't.
Yeah, I feel like she touched on a lot. Book, she mentions Joanna, right, his daughter, that we've heard about times, but not really. I mean, she mentions her, and she'll throw these little touches in where she gives a shout out to something or alludes to something, and then that's just kind of the extent of it.
That's pretty much So,
but I kind of felt like she was just kind of painting by numbers a little.
A little bit, and that's okay, because it's like you're all that paint in there is just like little fine details in there. It's like with the when you're looking at a painting, you're like, oh look, there's a little bird in that corner of the painting and stuff.
But you remember the David Gerald book?
Yes.
The first half of that book I just thought was great, even though nothing plot wise was happening. But all the little touches were real interesting. And here it felt like she's just kind of throwing stuff in to throw it in.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I suspect that we will get a lot of that in these books. I think, and we won't remember how much of it was that, but we're going to realize when we're actually doing analysis of these books that there's a lot of just thrown in there for the heck of it, kind of a thing. So look, things go weird. It's like at some point, Kirk is still on the planet, or rather, I guess. Up on the Earth, the Enterprise still, the Klingon, the first Klingon battle cruiser and Enterprise are going to try and entrap the Orion in a pincher movement, and it works and they fire all their weapons and it doesn't break down the Orion ship. They have regenerative shields or whatever, and so this is like a crisis nears and Bones is despairing, and then we go right to the planet, and on the planet while this battle is happening with Kaev's ship up in orbit. Kaev meets Kirk on the planet. And you're like, all right, what the hell is going on? It's because they're messing with time, right? That's the whole idea is they can go forward and backwards in time. They don't really perceive it the way we do.
And I like that. I thought that was good.
Yeah, and I was finally starting to notice. I was like, is this chapter in the wrong place? Did I not pay attention? Am I on a wrong page or whatever? Because Kaev and Kirk kind of get along. In fact, Kirk's like, have we met before? And he's like, no, I just heard McCoy, as Jay would say. It's told me all about you. He's like, that's weird.
Well, I had noticed, like a couple times while he's, having his 3-hour chat with The Rock, Kirk would call the ship or something. How's it going up there? Fine. And you're like, well, it's not fine. They've been looking for him. And so I gathered there was some time shenanigans going on, earlier. But it is cool. I like the time stuff, and I thought it was done well.
Well, this is where the master fesses up and says, that I've been a little bit untrue with you, and I believe I'm quoting here. He says, if we're doing things by the book, hours would seem like days. I believe it's something like that, or maybe days would seem like hours. So Kirk thinks he's been there for a couple hours. He's been there for days, and he's like freaked the hell out. So the master's like, "Yeah, let's go. We can fix that." Pop, and all of a sudden, Kirk's on the bridge, shields up, way out there in orbit. Doesn't matter because he's kind of really powerful. The master is, right. And so now Kirk's up there on the ship, and he's like, well, I'm taking control now. Let's go to warp, dumbass. Why are we not? And Scotty's like, well, the engines don't work. Me poor Barons. And so Kirk does this, and he says, all right, well, we better go to evasive maneuvers. And I figure it went something like this. You can tell me if I got this right. I said, evasive maneuvers, pattern stealth Omicron. Did I get that right?
I think so.
It's always pattern Delta or pattern Omega. I'm thinking it's pattern stealth Omicron is what it is.
It was you sent me the little TikTok-ish thing you made of Starfleet News squirt.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yes. I'm calling it that.
And the Starfleet News squirt.
Little squirt of Butch.
Who's that guy you said you were channeling?
Oh, yeah, John McLaughlin. Yeah, with Drew the other day, we podcasted with Drew, was talking about the McLaughlin group. Next issue! Yes.
Yeah. So I was picturing, Kirk says to Scotty, let's go to warp. Wrong! You want to stay in...
stay in pattern Omega. Pattern Omega. That's right. So they like I said, there's a lot of shooting, and then is like there's even some Starfleet tech on that Orion ship. I mean, and that leads to maybe there's a story. Maybe they'll have to track down how the Orions are getting Starfleet technology. Who knows what they're going to do with that or whatever. Always going to be setting up the next book. So. And the Enterprise is going up to warp 4, or is it 8? I don't know. Either way, my poor Barons are wrote. Now they have a 5-way pincer movement. They get the Orion ship in between all 5 of them, and they phaser it good. And then not only that, but that little probe that they sent out smacks right into the Orion ship, and now the Orion ship is crippled.
And that wasn't a probe. It was the rock.
Yeah, I thought it was the buoy that they had, the sensor buoy that they had put out or whatever.
Those rock things just kind of...
Well, that would make more sense, I think. So that's cool. So either way, that's the last we're going to see of that Orion ship. How about that? They're gonna say, well, we could destroy it, but they're going to decide not to destroy it later, and that's okay.
That's right. The mining ship from 90 years in the future is no more. We don't have to worry about this.
We'll leave you one engine to get back home and tell everybody about how you went up. You can tell everyone that this was the time you almost captured Captain Jim Kirk, or whatever. I don't know. All right, so now they've made it back, and Bones is back in sick bay. He's relieved to be there. He tells Kayev, he gets a message from the Klingon captain and says, "Yeah, by the way, I'm not I'm a doctor, not a captain," or something like that. I'm not sure exactly. He doesn't actually use those words. I can't believe he didn't use those words. I'm a doctor, not a captain. I can't believe he didn't say that. It was right there. Another note to Diane Duane. You missed the most obvious line of the whole book, damn it.
Jodie Foster wasn't that teed up on the pinball machine. I mean, too soon, Butch?
It's a little too soon.
Yeah, all right.
So listen, so now we're on the last chapter 11. This book's going chapter 11, that's right. Captain's log, the Enterprise and the Akara, that's the Klingon ship. are staying there for another week. They've been invited to stay there. We heard from Starfleet there's not going to be a black mark on Bones' record because some whatever hijinks or whatever. Now they're back on the planet, and now the Master says, I want you to guys stay at least a week. That'd be great. And by the way, did you know how all this is going to turn out? You can see in the future and in the past. It's like, well, just because we can see the present doesn't mean we know how the present's going to go. Which is really weird. I mean, again, they're playing with the whole idea of, our minds cannot really conceive of what they're saying is what it is.
Yeah, I like that. I thought it was good what she was doing there with all that. I was surprised they didn't bookend it with we're back in Switzerland.
Yeah, I was expecting that, honestly. Although we get a little bit, because what happens is what they bookend it with is that McCoy gets to go down and see the Master one last time, and the Master's like, hey, come over here and look. And he takes him over this place, and he watches the sunrise on a beach, just like at Montauk Point in North Carolina, Rob. That's the bookend. Right. I mean, it seems like a little weird. It's like, how does he know about that conversation? Now, the Master wasn't there. That just shows you how powerful he is. Powerful enough that they speculate, is he an angel?
Did you say North Carolina?
North Carolina. That's what they say Montauk Point was, North Carolina.
Oh, I thought it was in Switzerland. No, is it?
He's talking to the Daily Owner on the bridge or whatever. So then they speculate maybe the Master is like an angel or something like that. He could have been a space traveler, but he's content to live there on the planet. I didn't hear that.
Was he a friendly angel?
Yes, friendly angel, come to me. Yeah, and so that's how they ended. Was the Master a friendly angel or not?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you my overall impression of this book. It was okay.
Yeah,
I like some stuff. I really couldn't get on board with the premise.
Yeah,
it just bugged me much.
It is a big stretch. I will say that Diane Duane has a better concept of how to write a Star Trek novel than almost all the writers we've read on the Bantam books.
Yeah, but I'm going to guess this is her weakest entry in our...
I think so. I think so, probably, yeah. So, I mean, it's like, but that's okay. It's like you have an idea and you're like, I started out with this idea, and they're like, I pitched it to the company, and they're like, that's a dumb idea. So then they came up with another idea and they published it, and then I came up with another idea and they published it, and now it's my fifth book, and damn it, I'm doing the idea I want to do originally. I'm Diane Duane, bitches, I get to do my book, right?
I think the idea is interesting, but you can't explain it with that dipshit explanation. Yeah. It has to be something like Kirk, Spock, Scotty, Sulu, and half the crew are not there, and that's how I could not believe that Spock's helpless 3 feet to the right. I don't know. Well, that just really did bother.
And they do a very tiny amount of it. But it's set up to be like the great reversal of when McCoy is constantly harping on Spock when he's in command. It's like they could have totally done that, or at least done some banter. There's very little Spock-McCoy banter when he's in charge.
Spock doesn't give him any grief. Spock doesn't question anything McCoy does.
But that's smart on Spock's part. I mean, that's what Spock knows. That's what you're supposed to do, right? It's like, my job is not to
going to go all Tholian Web on McCoy.
Yeah, exactly. And so there was a one point when at some point McCoy starts to go, "You green blood." He's like, "Calm yourself. You're gonna raise your blood pressure."
Your blood pressure.
Yeah. Which is just another version of that. McCoy giving the Klingon commander medical advice, or Spock giving McCoy medical advice, which I think is also gangster.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen them disagree about something, and McCoy plays a hunch or whatever, like Kirk does all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Instead, it's like, "Oh, I didn't know you read, Jellicoe, and he uses the phrase "nuts" when they're like, "We demand your surrender." That's a phrase that was used by a World War II general in the 1944, and he's like, yeah, surrender. He's like, nuts, and they're like, I don't know what that means.
From you have to watch noir films from the 40s to get that. Nuts to you, Copper.
Yeah, no. That's right, exactly. All right, so I think you're right. We're at this point, it's number one on our list. It seems hard to imagine it's going to stay there.
I don't know. I'm worried that it's not going to make it through all 50 at the top.
Yeah, but it is time, Rob, to roll the next book. This is exciting.
This is exciting. This is probably the most excited I've been since I opened this book.
So, like I said, I have the 20-sided die here that we roll to determine if it's the first 10, second 10, third 10, fourth 10, fifth 10, right?
Okay.
And then the 10-sided dice determines. So if I roll like a 3, it's going to be books 1 to 10. And if because the first 4, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how it's going to work. And then if it's that one, then I roll the 10-sided dice to determine if it's 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'll roll those dice now, one at a time, to find it out. So we do the extra drama because this is a big step here. Ready? So find out which of the quintiles it's in. Here we go. It is in the second quintile, so it will be number 11 through 20. So
and those are probably all going to be good, right?
20% of those books are written by Diane Duane. So
I don't remember duds, though, in the early Trek novels. I really don't.
All right, here we go. This is the number right here. It is 15. Star Trek number 15, Corona.
Ooh, I remember liking that one. So
All right, and I own it, so that's good. So Corona, ladies and gentlemen, will be our number 2.
Don't have a chick on the cover?
It does, yes. I believe.
Okay.
So
like a brunette?
we will get back to you with more details when next we meet, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you, as always, our humble listeners, for joining Rob and Butch, Rob and Butch and Rob here on Star Trek. God, am I going to get this name wrong? Is that a Trek in your pocket? That's right. For our debut episode, and join us next time for Is That a Trek in Your Pocket? Any last words from you, Rob, before we go?
I'm just happy to see you.
Thank you. All right.